Over the past 30 years, ecstasy has become one of America's top club drugs.
Oh my God, this feels so great. And love, 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 love.
It's had a major effect on fashion, music, and how we party.
Oh my God!
Now, for the first time, we follow these two ecstasy users and journey inside their bodies to find out how the drug creates its highs and its lows.
They told me that I stopped breathing. The doctor said that I would have died.
I think I'm in hell. Could you come get me?
And with access to cutting-edge science, we find out why ecstasy is known as the love drug.
Will you just give me a hug?
It's a drug that has changed some lives irreversibly.
And then his eyes had rolled back, and then they knew he was gone.
We're just doing MDMA to be close.
Killer chemical, or the ultimate feel-good high. This is the story of how ecstasy works. Ecstasy. It's the magic pill that defined the rave generation. But it's not just hardened clubbers who use it these days. In pill or crystal form, the unique combination of energy and empathy that ecstasy creates has led 750,000 Americans to become regular users.
Oh, it's a lovely big gram.
20-year-old student Katie is taking time out from her studies and is getting ready for a night out clubbing with friends. Ecstasy is high on her agenda.
I haven't done it in ages, so it is a special occasion because it's the first time in ages. At these places, there's always such a good atmosphere because everyone's probably going to be off their head.
Katie started out taking pills, but when she can get it, she prefers the crystal form of the drug, named after its main active ingredient, MDMA.
Oh, God. That is disgusting.
MDMA is a drug Katie only takes when she's hitting the clubs.
Because it looks proper quality. I'm probably going to be having a good time and dancing, and that's what we want.
Katie prepares the drug by wrapping it in cigarette papers to make what are called bombs.
I don't like the idea that I'd have to keep taking out a packet in a club. It'd be a lot more chance that I'd get caught doing it that way. So in a bomb, it's safe in your pocket or wherever you put it, and you just get them out as and when. Oh God, my hair is awful. Open that one last. And I just can't wait to go out and get messy.
Katie tries to pace herself when taking MDMA and make sure each bomb contains just a small amount of the drug.
I've got a little bomb here. Hopefully by 12 we'll be on the level and I won't be too messy that I won't get allowed into the place. So I'm going to do this little one to get me up there and hopefully stop me shivering because it's very cold in this place. Chin chin.
Whether it's taken as a pill or as crystals, most users of ecstasy take the drug orally. It starts to disintegrate in the stomach, and by the time it reaches the small intestine, the particles are small enough to be absorbed into the bloodstream. The drug is pumped to the heart and lungs, and then to the rest of the body. In the brain, the molecules are carried through tiny capillaries. Their walls are thick enough to protect the brain from most impurities. But MDMA molecules can slip through the capillary walls and cross into the brain. Around half an hour after Katie swallowed the MDMA, it starts to take effect.
I'm feeling pretty good. I wouldn't say, I don't really know if I'm coming up because I've only just left and now I'm going somewhere else. But if I'm pretty bloody honest, I'm feeling pretty fantastic.
When Lynn Marie Smith started taking X in New York in the 90s, she found the buzz wasn't like anything she'd ever experienced before.
I didn't know anything about ecstasy until I moved to New York City and I saw the pills, the smiley faces and the stamps, and I was like, what? This is a drug? It looks like a little piece of candy, you know? Like, how could anything this little and tiny do anything bad to me?
Ecstasy pills are famous for their logos, which often reference famous brands. They're usually produced in makeshift labs outside the US and smuggled in.
I tried it one night with a few friends from acting school, and I waited, and I was kind of nervous, and I was like, it's probably not gonna work. I've never done drugs before. It's not even gonna, nothing's gonna happen. And then it was like, wow. And I felt amazing. I felt incredible. I felt one with the world, one with God, one with myself. For so long, I had all this stuff down, and my insecurity and all my emotions and my frustrations, they disappeared when I took that drug.
The key to ecstasy's euphoric effects lies in its unique chemical structure.
Ecstasy is a type of amphetamine. It is both a stimulant and a hallucinogen like LSD. So it has both effects in the same molecule. Ecstasy causes people to embrace one another. It is a social bonding feeling. It creates intimacy, and that's why people use it, is to have this powerful emotional connection with one another.
Users have long raved about ecstasy's ability to create empathy. But scientists don't fully understand how this effect works. So at the University of Chicago, experts have been given permission to study recreational users as they get high on MDMA. 31-year-old Svet has volunteered to take part. He's been an occasional user for around 10 years.
Every time is different. Last time it was just me and my girlfriend. The time before it was a birthday party of a friend of mine, and it was just purely dancing. Hey Nick, morning. How are you?
Good to see you.
Scientists hope that if they can learn more about why ecstasy creates empathy, it could show how the drug might be used as a prescription medicine, for example, for people in therapy.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you your capsule now. So there's 2 capsules. So
Svet is given 95 milligrams of MDMA, although he is unaware if this is the real thing or a placebo.
if the participant knew they might have sort of expectations, they know that maybe receiving a stimulant is supposed to make them sort of excited and upbeat.
An hour after taking the drug, Svet is pretty sure he knows what he's taken.
Well, I believe I get some ecstasy today for free. Relaxed, actually. But I cannot completely concentrate of any particular thing. Just want to enjoy myself.
Feeling all right?
Quite delightful.
Quite delightful?
Yes.
Okay. On the next thing.
In his first task, Svet is shown pictures of people with different facial expressions. He must identify whether each expression is happy, sad, angry, fearful, or neutral. The exercise is designed to find out if ecstasy increases or decreases the user's ability to identify emotions in others.
We would like to see really whether it increases the ability to kind of discriminate more finely tuned emotions. So whether if a fearful face comes up, are they good at recognizing that that's actually a fearful face, or do they mistake it for anger?
I'm maybe happy. Really sad.
Results so far suggest ecstasy actually decreases the user's ability to read negative emotions in others. This could be why users are able to socialize more confidently after taking the drug, because they are oblivious to the negative emotional cues that others may be giving off.
All right, so this is your last task. Basically, you're going to see a series of photos of different people, and it's going to ask you to rate those faces on how you feel about them for a variety of kind of adjectives.
In this task, Svet must rate each person he sees on how attractive, intelligent, and trustworthy they look.
Okay, attractive. It's a good-looking guy. Intelligent, friendly, yes.
Expecting that it would increase empathetic feelings, kind of pro-social feelings. So we would expect that it would increase feelings of trustworthiness, of friendliness, possibly attractiveness.
So, not only does ecstasy make users miss negative emotional cues in others, it could also lead them to actively apply positive attributes to people they meet. Having completed all his tasks, Svet has a craving to test the effects of MDMA in a more familiar environment.
It's really weird to take something here in a small room. For me personally, this is a party drug. If there is a house tune, I would dance, like some frisky dance with a lovely lady. I want to dance my ass, though.
On Katie's night out, the MDMA starts triggering outpourings of love towards everyone she meets.
Getting a bit too
Do you love her? I wish every person on the street was my best friend. Will you give me a hug? And they will be by the end of the night, believe you me. Will you just give me a hug?
There you go.
Inside Katie's brain, MDMA is starting to cause big changes that will affect the rest of her night.
This is going to be such a good night.
I know, I can feel it.
But I love you.
But I love you too.
It's past midnight, and Katie has finally made it to the club. As the MDMA she took earlier kicks in, she makes new friends on the dance floor.
I love everyone around me, and it's perfect. Do you not see it? I didn't even have to chat, and everyone was just like, yeah! It's great.
The key to how Katie's acting and feeling lies deep inside her brain, where billions of nerve cells communicate by sending messages through networks. Where one nerve meets another, there are tiny gaps. Here, the messages are relayed by the release of chemicals. In one network, ecstasy disrupts how these chemical messages are sent, and this can create intensely sociable feelings in the user.
I've made friends with about 25% of the club, but we've still got a long way to go. Long way.
Once ecstasy gets inside Katie's brain, in the gaps between nerve cells, it triggers an increase in a chemical messenger called serotonin.
The way that MDMA works, you have two neurons. You have neuron A, neuron B, and there's pitching and catching, pitching, catching. A pitches, B catches.
Serotonin latches onto receptors on the neighboring nerve cell, starting a chain reaction of feel-good messages. Usually, when there is excess serotonin, it is reabsorbed into the nerve cell that released it. But MDMA stops this process happening, creating a loved-up feeling throughout the network.
I know the kind of communal spirit it is when everyone's on the same drugs and everyone's loving something the same way. It's special. And a lot of people there are loving it the same way, trust me.
When Lynn Marie Smith started taking ecstasy after she moved to New York City, the drug became a major part of how she socialized with her friends.
I met a guy and we started dating and doing ecstasy together, and that just changed everything for me. So we did it together and all his friends, and they became my friends, and I was like, this is my crew, and we're going out all the time, and it moved from just hanging out in apartments and talking to like clubs. And just walking on the streets was a party, and like the noise and the people and the music, and there was always drugs, there was always cocaine, there was ecstasy, there was acid, there was pot, there was alcohol. And it was just really easy to do it more. I think I just swallowed a pill and thought like, this is fun, Oh my God, this feels so great, and it makes me feel great, and I love being around my friends who are so great, and love, 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 love.
As Katie's night continues, the friendly feelings just keep on coming.
We have just met about 15 minutes ago. Just crashed down here.
Now we're best mates. I want to go and raid. Do you want to go and raid?
I'll go raid, let's go raid.
We're going to go and raid.
Her loved-up experience is heightened because the serotonin triggered earlier causes the release of a hormone from a gland in the brain. It's called oxytocin, known as the cuddle chemical, and is naturally released to help human bonding, for example, after sex.
There's a post-orgasmic state where your oxytocin levels are up, and that helps you to connect with your mate. So it's thought to be important in social connections and in trust.
People were just on the level with it. Everyone's loving everything. And everyone's good, and I'm good, and you're good, and we're good. And that's good. Because it's perfect. And it's MD amazing.
For 19-year-old Robert, Ecstasy helps him feel close to his friends.
It has definitely had some sort of an impact on my outlook on life. I mean, as a result of having more open and frank and honest conversations with my friends when I'm on the drug, it's enabled me to be more open and honest with my friends when I'm off the drug.
Tonight, Robert is planning to take MDMA at a secret warehouse rave.
Shoes are off!
Robert doesn't usually dress up at raves, but as it's Halloween, he gets into the spirit.
He looks like the dude from The Big Lebowski.
Dude. It's a bit of a transformation, I'll admit. Yeah. It's a pretty strange location, you know. It looks to be like 3 or 4 different rooms connected by a big joint car park.
After half an hour, Robert feels settled enough for his first hit of MDMA. He doesn't swallow it. He crushes the crystals into a powder so he can sniff the drug.
Snorting MDMA is not a particularly pleasant experience. The crystals are quite large, but it helps you feel the effects faster. I've only just gotten here and just sort of getting the party off to a flying start, I suppose.
When MDMA is snorted, it rockets up the nostril and coats the nasal walls. MDMA molecules are absorbed through the nasal membrane directly into the blood-carrying capillaries on the other side. Within 20 minutes, the MDMA in the blood has been pumped around the body, up to the brain, and is ready to start work.
I mean, it hasn't hit me yet, and once it does, I'll be talking at a mile a minute, and soon I'll just feel almost like I have to move to the music.
As the MDMA kicks in, more chemicals are released in Robert's brain, and before long, he's got only one thing on his mind: dancing. MDMA can make ravers feel compelled to move to music. Half an hour after taking the drug, it's beginning to have an effect all over Robert's body.
It's hitting me a bit now. I feel more forced to move to the music that I hear. You sort of feel full of energy once it's hit you. I mean, they call it rolling, and that's almost what it feels like, that you're sort of rolling with the momentum that it gives you.
The energetic high that ravers feel on the dance floor happens because ecstasy triggers activity in another network in the brain. In this network, a chemical called dopamine carries messages that control movement.
Dopamine is a chemical that is thought to be involved in the reward pathways. And it's involved in a certain amount of pleasure and stimulation and motivation. You're motivated, you're charged up, you want to get into the game.
It's just 4/4 beats all night. You would think that would get a little bit grating if you were sober, but when you're under the influence, you lose yourself in the sounds.
Ecstasy users are famous for dancing in a repetitive style, hour after hour. That's because dopamine release in this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, makes them focus attention on one particular task. In this case, dancing.
You will dance to anything. Like anything. Even Soulja Boy or Justin Bieber. But actually, maybe not Justin. Nah, let me take that out. That's awful.
On her night out, Katie has been dancing for 2 hours straight. The way ecstasy allows her to focus on music is a key attraction of the drug.
That noise right there, I don't know if you can hear that, but that wah, 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 that is my call to nature.
Ravers can focus on music more intensely after taking ecstasy because of how the drug affects the brain's basic operating system. Nerves in this network control what's going on all over the brain and make sure we stay focused on the stuff that's important. When chemical messengers are released from cells in this network, instead of stimulating activity, it dampens things down, allowing other more creative areas of the brain to run free. So, for example, the part of the brain that processes sound allows us to hear and interpret music in new and interesting ways.
You'd be dancing from 9 o'clock at night till 6 o'clock the next morning without any problem at all. But you've got to be careful as well. I guess that would be one of the risks of just getting exhausted.
The way that ecstasy causes some users to dance frantically for hours is key to its popularity as a club drug. But this effect can put users in physical danger, which in rare cases is life-threatening. When 17-year-old Cynthia Embry took X at a party last year, she had no clue that 12 hours later, she'd be in the hospital, close to death.
Cynthia, I just want you to know I love you very much.
Cynthia's sister, Karina, rushed to the hospital as soon as she heard what had happened.
Her head was just sweating and sweating and sweating. Her hair looked like it was just all, like it was still kind of wet, but her skin was just freezing cold. If she wouldn't have been twitching or moving, I would have already said she was dead.
Cynthia was showing symptoms of hypothermia, a condition that causes the body to overheat dramatically. Hypothermia starts in a part of the brain called the hypothalamus. This is our thermostat. It tells us how hot or cold we are and regulates temperatures all over the body. The big release of serotonin in this part of the brain interferes with the way the thermostat works. The fact that people often take ecstasy in hot clubs means their temperature can rise rapidly without them noticing.
It affects every organ system. So it affects your brain, it affects your heart, it affects your kidneys, it affects your liver, and it affects your muscles.
Cynthia's liver was at risk because as her body temperature tipped over 104, the free-flowing proteins that make up the cells in the liver stopped functioning properly. The proteins began to lock together. If this continued, the cells would stop working and the organ would shut down. With Cynthia's condition deteriorating, her family had a tense wait to see if she would pull through.
You want to be able to go in there and help them and just, you know, keep their life from leaving their body, and you can't. All you can do is just watch helplessly, like if someone jumped off a building and there's just watching them fall.
It's not looking good.
When she was admitted to the hospital after taking ecstasy, Cynthia Embry's family waited anxiously for doctors to tell them if she'd survive.
It looked really, really bad. We asked them what was going to happen. They're like, well, she might not even make it, and if she does, she's probably going to be a vegetable for the rest of her life.
Over 4 days of intensive treatment, in which her temperature was carefully controlled and her fluid levels corrected, Cynthia miraculously pulled through.
I wish I could explain how it feels.
Since her recovery, Cynthia has opened up to her family about what happened on the night she was hospitalized.
I wanted to go to a party because my friends invited me, but my mom said no. So I ended up sneaking out. Went through the front door when my mom and my sister were talking. And when I ended up going, it just kind of went wrong. I started getting a little tipsy. And I asked my friend if I could have a pill. And the pill wasn't hitting me. I couldn't feel anything yet. So I would take another one, and another one, and another one. And it just kind of went on from there. I open up the bathroom door and I see two cholos crushing up pills. And they're just looking at me. I black out. And next thing I know, I black out again, like snorting pills. I couldn't feel anything. And I blacked out again. And then I looked up and I blinked, and 3 days later I woke up in the hospital. They told me that I stopped breathing. And I started turning blue and white. The doctor said that I would have died.
Cynthia's body was overheating, but as her condition worsened, she showed symptoms of another rare condition that can follow raised body temperature. It's called hyponatremia and occurs when levels of water in the blood become dangerously high. Ecstasy triggers a hormone that can make users conserve more water than usual. And it's made worse when ravers in hot, sweaty nightclubs drink large quantities. When blood carrying too much water reaches the brain, then there's a real danger. The nerve cells swell up and the brain is squashed against the skull. In the worst cases, the brain crushes down on the spinal column, causing death. Fortunately, doctors were able to stabilize Cynthia's condition before this stage, although she remained on the critical list for several days. Karina uses the video she filmed of Cynthia to show her sister how close she came to death.
I just want you to know I love you very much.
I wish you would have talked with me about this. Please don't do this to me ever again.
It's a different person when you watch that video. It's not you. You know it's you, but you really don't think it's you because it doesn't look like you.
This is your body on drugs, man.
Karina's put the video on YouTube to remind her sister and others of the dangers of X. Despite this, she still worries Cynthia could roll again.
I'm so scared because I want to say she learned her lesson, but she still has the same personality. And she still hangs around with the same kids.
Just out of the cravings, I could be sucked back right into it because it's really hard to say no. Every time I hear that music, it gives me this ugly gut feeling where you want to throw up. It's like if you don't roll, then you're gonna start throwing up because you crave it so much, like an actual addiction or something. It sucks, it hurts.
Robert's been at the rave for 3 hours, and his first line of MDMA is starting to wear off. So he plugs up with his second hit.
I am buzzing, I suppose. I mean, my eyes are sort of darting around the place. I'm keeping... I've got a smile on my face I can't seem to wipe off. You feel compelled to move to this thumping rhythm.
At her club, Katie also tops up with another bomb. As the ravers take more MDMA, the physical effects become more visible. That's because MDMA triggers the release of a chemical called noradrenaline all over the body.
I've only done 2 bombs so far, and I'm not gonna lie, you can probably tell by my eyes.
In the eye, where nerve endings meet muscle, noradrenaline is released. It makes the muscle contract and the pupil dilates.
If you see someone buzzing on ecstasy, their eyes are huge. Practically no iris, just pupil.
Clenching the jaw is another well-known effect. Here, the drug triggers the jaw muscles, creating the distinctive gurning action.
So all this stuff, when you're seeing someone on this, if you haven't done MD, it's definitely terrifying. But for me, when I see people doing it, I know that the messier they look, the better time that they're having.
While some users consider the side effects minor, ecstasy can have serious physical and psychological consequences.
Dark eyes. So pale and sickly and dirty and, probably not seen daylight in a very long time. Taking so much ecstasy also made my skin horrible, made me break out horribly. Feeling like an old lady, you know, your knees and your joints aching and just feeling depleted.
Within months, Lynn Marie Smith's good times on ecstasy had turned into a living nightmare. Lynn Marie Smith was trying to make it as an actor in New York City when her recreational use of ecstasy started to get out of control.
A couple of days after doing ecstasy would just crash and feel depressed and feel dark and blue. But for me, I would just pick right back up and do more ecstasy.
But frequent use of the drug makes the highs harder to achieve. The problem is a shortage of the feel-good chemical serotonin.
The first time you take MDMA, all the built-up serotonin, in storage gets released. It takes a while to replete the stores of serotonin, and it's never like the first time. You never get all your stores back up to the way they were before you took MDMA.
The more ecstasy that Lynn took, the harder it was for her to get high. In fact, she felt just the opposite, probably because her brain couldn't build serotonin levels back up before she rolled again. Increasingly, the loved-up feelings were replaced by depression.
This is the night I prayed that I would die. There was a party going on at my house. Music is blaring outside, and all these people who I didn't even know inside my house. I went back to my room and I locked the door, and I laid down on my bed, and I prayed to God that I would die.
Low levels of serotonin in the brain can cause serious mental health problems.
Some people refer to MDMA as a serotonin depleter. So some people who take too much ecstasy too frequently do get depressed or they get panic attacks. They start to look like people who've got a low serotonergic state.
After 2 years of drug abuse, one night, Lynn's problems reached a new low.
All of a sudden, something shifted, and I started to hallucinate, and I looked at my friends, and they were, turning into the devil and just dark, weird, crazy stuff that I had never seen before. I started panicking and running around the apartment, screaming and saying, like, help me, guys, something's wrong, like, something's really wrong. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I was running in and out of the house, running out in the streets. I was, in and out of reality. I was just so just slipping away really quickly and scared for my life. And I called my mom in the middle of the night and I said, I think I'm dead. I think I'm in hell. Could you come get me?
Lynn's mother immediately drove to New York to collect her. They drove back to their hometown and checked Lynn into the local psychiatric hospital.
I've never been so scared in all my life, like screaming and crying, and they have to put me into a locked, secured room by myself because they thought I was a danger to myself and others. I was in a living hell, a living nightmare that I could not wake up from.
Lynn was given antidepressants, although it was only when she became drug-free that her recovery really began. It took Lynn many months to start to rebuild her life. She now uses her experience to help others avoid going through what she did.
I'm not trying to bash ecstasy. I'm not trying to bash anything, really. Ecstasy is a pill. I gave it a power. I thought, this drug is gonna change my life. But also, it can hurt your life. It certainly hurt mine. And if anything, the reason I share my story is I want people to know that they can get through something that's so awful and so hard and so dark, and that you can be at rock bottom and you can get through to the other side and not only survive, but you can thrive in your life.
Even recreational users can experience a significant low as the effects of ecstasy start to wear off.
What a group of people. We literally smashed it. Complete strangers, united for a few hours on the dance floor, going nuts.
It's 5 a.m. and Katie heads to a friend's apartment. The come down is about to begin. In Katie's brain, the receptors on nerve cells have now been overloaded by the frenzy of activity. They are less stimulated by the serotonin, and the loved-up high starts to subside.
I'm absolutely off my pickle. My eyes are going up and down, so my vision's not quite there yet. And I can't remember what we were talking about again. So out of 0.5 gram, I've still got 2 pretty big bombs left.
So what do you think? Do you think you'll save those for another time then, or are you?
Probably not. We'll see what happens. It all depends on what everyone else is doing, because I don't want to be on this mission for no reason.
Dawn is breaking on the warehouse rave, and Robert is also considering whether to take any more MDMA.
Sun's up now. We might still be here for another hour or so, probably. So I'm going to take a little bit more just to sort of keep me energized. Because I feel fine now, but I know in about half an hour or so, I'll start dragging myself about and then it'll only go downhill.
As Robert takes more MDMA, the loved-up high will eventually start to elude him. That's because there's only so much serotonin available, and the massive release earlier has left the stores depleted.
I'll feel that my entire body is exhausted, but my mind will actually sort of still be racing a little bit.
Although ecstasy can cause depressive feelings, there are some who believe the drug can also be used to treat depression. The roots of MDMA as a therapy drug go back to the late 1970s, when psychedelic pharmacist Alexander Shulgin, often dubbed the godfather of ecstasy, synthesized the compound in his garden laboratory.
I saw it as almost like an intoxicant. I could see where I could have gotten really into the knack of using it, except my search was not being pleasurably turned on. My search was finding new things.
Shulgin gave MDMA to psychologist friends, and before long, the drug was being used during sessions for couples in relationship therapy. When it was banned, this use of the drug went underground. But recently, there's been a movement to legalize MDMA in therapy. Dr. Rick Doblin is a major advocate.
We're primarily engaged in trying to develop MDMA for post-traumatic stress disorder, and then another approach is looking at MDMA for cancer patients with anxiety.
Sue Stevens first came across MDMA when her husband was diagnosed with kidney cancer.
We had a total breakdown in communication. We could not talk about anything having to do with his health at all. So if he brought up, well, I got to go to a doctor's appointment or this is going on, I would tense up and I would think, cancer, doctor's appointment, death, and my head would start spinning and I would start crying and that would have me upset and he would be upset. So it got to the point we just stopped talking about it.
A friend who had heard of the use of MDMA for relationship therapy suggested Sue and Shane try the drug. After checking it out and with guidance from an underground therapist, the couple decided to take the drug together for the first time.
We're sitting there watching movies, and about a half hour into it, we're sitting there going, wow, this is a crappy movie, what are we waiting for? And all of a sudden, phew, it all came to life. Like the drug kicked in, and he just looks at me and he's holding my hands. He's going, all right, let's talk. I know what you want to talk about. Come on, let's go.
Sue and Shane took MDMA together on 3 more occasions and were so impressed by the drug, they filmed their final session.
When you take MDMA, things don't hurt you. The words don't hurt you. You can feel them, but the pain doesn't come along with it.
The reason MDMA is such an effective drug is because it reduces the fear response to emotional threats. It's almost miraculous in a very short amount of time by the way that it strengthens people's ability to accept and integrate emotional challenges.
Had we not done that first session, we would not have been together at the time of his death. So MDMA fixed us.
After Shane's death, Sue turned to MDMA again, this time taking the drug with a trained therapist who helped her work through her grief.
Every drug has side effects, every drug has risks. And the problem is that those people that have demonized MDMA have tried to exaggerate the risks and say that there are no benefits. What really matters is how you balance the risks and benefits.
Soon, a trial will begin, testing MDMA as a way of helping Iraq and Afghanistan war veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress.
I think we're about 10 years away from MDMA as a prescription medicine.
But taking the drug under supervision is not the same as taking it for recreation. With no controls at all, rolling on X can turn into family tragedy. At a school in Colorado, Melissa Lopez has come to talk to students about ecstasy and the devastating effect it has had on her family.
January 19th of 2008, I lost my 16-year-old son to an ecstasy overdose.
Melissa's son, Tony, was her first child and usually went by the nickname Toaster.
Tony was the cutest little boy, and always so happy. Ecstasy didn't describe who he was.
Since Tony's death, his friends regularly gather at Melissa's house to support her and to remember him. Among them is Tony's girlfriend, Christina.
The deeper we got into our relationship with each other, the more we started using ecstasy. We would do it 4 or 5 times a week, and we were getting in a lot of fights, and we both came to the conclusion that it was the drug that was doing this to us. And a couple of days before he passed away, we promised each other that we were done rolling. And he went behind my back, and look where he is now.
On the night Tony died, he was hanging out with friends when he called Melissa to let her know of a change of plan.
About 8:30, Tony called me and he asked permission to spend the night at his friend's house. He had been there before. I knew that a parent was going to be home, and I figured that was going to be fine.
Christina had been unable to speak to Tony all evening, and as it got late, she grew concerned. The boys with him wouldn't tell her what was going on. Finally, at 2 a.m., she climbed in through a window.
When I walked in, I didn't expect what I was gonna find, which was my boyfriend on a bed with a purple towel over his face.
At 3:15 that morning, Melissa was woken by a knock at the door.
When I opened the door, there was about 12 teenagers on my doorstep. I immediately walked past all of them and I started looking in the cars and asking them, "Where's Tony?" There had already been a Jefferson County Sheriff parked down the street. He then came in and all he told me was that you need to wait here, a coroner's going to come to talk to you. And it was at that moment that I knew that if a coroner was coming, that my son was gone.
For weeks, Melissa tried to find out exactly what had happened to Tony that night.
They said about 15 to 20 minutes after Tony ingested the pills, his knees gave way and they had to lie him on the bed. He was sweating profusely, so they cut his shirts off of him in an attempt to cool him down. And they explained to me how when my son passed away, he let out the rest of his air and that his eyes had rolled back, and then they knew he was gone.
Tony had suffered a severe case of hypothermia, brought on by the ecstasy. As his body temperature increased, he would have suffered major organ failure.
I believe that I represent your mother, and that's who I come to speak for, is for your mothers. Sorry. So that they will never have to go through this. Always, when it comes to ecstasy, I say it's like playing Russian roulette with your life, because you never know.
It's 8 a.m. Sunday morning, and Robert took his last MDMA of the night 2 hours ago.
We've gone over the mountain and now we're on our descent.
But spirits are high.
Spirits are always high.
This is the sign of a good night. When you leave the rave with a smile on your face despite the fact you're coming down.
After 12 hours on the town, Katie's also on her way home.
Yay! Made it! Wow, that's amazing.
Katie's kit to help the come down is a vitamin pill and a joint.
I just like to do it after I've been out in the morning when you get back and you're like, yes. Now there's no more goal for the day really other than to just relax. God, I'm so tired. I can barely keep my eyes open.
Smoking joints at the end of the night is common among ecstasy users, trying to delay the come down. Aware of the dangers, Katie and Robert consider the drugs a way to enhance their social life.
I think we had a good time, didn't we, guys? Yeah.
Good time, wild time.
Never thought I'd be a drug user, ever, when I was a kid. But with ecstasy, you feel like a much more talkative, friendly, open, honest, empathetic you.
I absolutely loved and adored everyone that crossed my path and wanted to be best friends with them for life. I have no idea who any of them are, obviously.
Does it ever feel a bit sort of surface? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but who cares? Yeah, obviously I'm not going to be best friends with them. I don't care. It's just in the moment. That just happens and you just enjoy it while you're there. And it works.
Ecstasy is a drug that can make us feel good, and many users consider it a fun part of life.
That's not the only thing I'm into. I do it now and again. I've done really well at school. I'm now at uni. I've gone travelling on my own. It's something that I do, and I enjoy it.
It's a drug that's even helped some people overcome psychological problems.
Miss that.
But for others, using ecstasy has been a nightmare.
I felt like every other teenager, that I didn't think it was gonna happen to me, that you're invincible. But I wasn't invincible.
I want people to know that it's possible to feel that ecstasy without using it.
Despite the risks, ecstasy has been one of America's most used illegal drugs for 20 years and shows no sign of going away.
The best way to protect the children is by being honest. We should really let science, unfettered, investigate the range of risks and the range of benefits in a range of different contexts, and that's what we should be teaching our children.